Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Wednesday, January the 6th, 2021, and I want to be updating you on COVID-19. So in Canada, we have 62,005,051 cases confirmed in Canada. Alberta has 10,006,378 cases, 1,168 deaths. British Columbia has 54,629 cases, 954 deaths. Manitoba has 25,541 cases, 705 deaths. New Brunswick has 693 cases, 9 deaths. Newfoundland and Labrador has 391 cases, 4 deaths. Nova Scotia has 1,520 cases, 65 deaths. Ontario has 20,006,206 cases, 4,767 deaths total. Prince Edward Island has 101 cases, 0 deaths. Quebec has 21,007,999 cases, 8,488 deaths. Saskatchewan has 16,804 cases, 174 deaths. Northwest Territories has 24 cases, 0 deaths. Nunavut has 266 cases, 1 death, and Yukon has 65 cases and 1 death total. So these are the cases that we have across Canada. Across Canada, and that's the cases that is going on um, in the provinces and the territories. We have to make sure our numbers are not that high. Our numbers are every day are still going up, and every day we can see it is going really up in every way. So we have to do our best as much as we can by protecting our health, by caring about our loved ones as much as we can, and making sure that we stay healthy in every way, because it's really important that we have to do all we can to follow the health guidelines and to follow the health rules as much as we can. And I encourage everybody, please, to do that and think about what I'm talking about, because what I'm talking about is a serious thing. I'm not just saying anything. We have to make sure we do our best as much as we can by protecting ourselves and making sure that we care about our loved ones as much as we can. Not to joke around with this, because this is not a joking matter. This is a serious matter. We need to all know that. So um, in the meantime, like I said, these cases are going to continue going to be going up, but we have to do our part at the end of the day. That's what we need to do as much as we can, and not joke around with this at all. And be serious about it as much as we can, because some people, I know, they're not serious about their health, and your health has to be very serious in every way, and you have to watch it. You have to make sure how important you're going to take your health serious as much as we can. Especially we have now Jason Kenney's government doesn't want to take nothing seriously. It does not matter. We're gonna have to continue doing this process as much as we can and making sure that we follow the health rules. Although we have a provincial government that does not want to follow the health rules, we have a provincial government that does not want to follow health guidelines and following what's right. But we need to do what's right at the end of the day, and that's what's really important for you guys to understand, and for everybody to understand how important it is to follow the health rules and to follow health guidelines. So today I'm going to be going a little bit more on provincial politics. Maybe we're going to go even beyond that, but we're going to be talking about today provincial politics, and we're going to see um, provincial politics is crazy, right? It's very important that we take this government as much as we can seriously. This government doesn't want to take nothing seriously, right? So we're gonna be talking about a little bit of our provincial government and how corrupted this government is in every way we can see it. That is no, it does not give chances to people. It did a lot of damage during the year of 2020, especially the year of the pandemic. We saw this government did a lot of damage to people. It damaged people's lives. People were sad, they were devastating, but we saw that, and it was really sad to see that happening. And again, it's not really a joking matter, but it's really sad to see this is happening, especially in our provinces and our country, how things are going. Things are really bad in Alberta, but we have to know that um, until we have another 2 years of this government, things are not going to be changing, right? So I'm going to be reading a little bit of Jason Kenney's stuff. So some advice to Kenny's next chief of staff. So welcome to the most exploratory, exciting, and exhausting job in politics. As the top political staffer, you may have an enormous opportunity to leave the province a better place than you found it, and give the circumstances of your arrival that might actually be easier than you think. A government under fire is an enormous opportunity, though not without great risk. There's no magic to being a successful chief of staff. You either have it or you do not, and no one really knows what it really is. But this I do know: your role is one of the political management, and there is a magic for that, namely, either you cannot the agenda or the agenda will not control you. Effective immediately, the government should announce that any caucus member or senior staff who leaves the province unless on official government duty will be out of caucus or out of job, period. This should last until some target numbers of Albertans are vaccinated. Certainly more than 50% considered getting all caucus members to sign a stay-at-home pledge. You need to do this because the action of a few of have lowered the bar. You now need to start by raising the bar for yourself. Well beyond what you expect from others. Go beyond what is necessary as a sign of humility and concentration. And if you do not think humility and concentration are needed, go sit in a bunch of swing voter focus group. Going forward, keep one foot and one arm and one ear outside of the dome. As they say, as myself, political boss once said, too many politicians spend too much time in their consequence office and not enough time in their constitutes. All public communication on public health measures needs to be as much as possible. The Premier and ministers should play a supporting role, not a leading role. In public communication, again, the public needs to hear more from health professionals and less from politicians. You can regain public confidence if it is clear you are listening to the people the public trusts, which right now is not you. I'm big fan of ideology in political, but there is a time to tone that back and give respect, professional their duty. This is a pathway to rebuild confidence that you are doing things in the public interest and not as they saw demonstrated over Christmas in your own. The various travel infrastructure and in particular at the initial of those infrastructures by the Premier and members of your government has left the public confused about what they are and are not allowed to do, to say nothing of what they are and are not recommended to do. Over the above, the guidelines for your own caucus and senior staff, you need to communicate clearly what is required and what is recommended when it comes to travel by the public. You might consider mayors from Alberta major cities plus a representative sample of mayors from similar cities to re-communicate these directions. You've lost credibility and can use some of their plus in their interest as well as yours to ensure the public doesn't use your government recent reaction as an excuse to go lax on the rules. Most government in trouble look for a channel change. Some even manufacture one. You are very fortunate as you have one sitting on your doorstep vaccination. If your government does a stellar job of vaccinating Albertans, all may not be forgiven, but much will be forgotten. You need to gain control and keep control of vaccination rollout. That should be your single-minded. You can regain the you can regain and providing good government if you can demonstrate leadership and on vaccination. The Premier needs to give his full and daily attention to overseeing the vaccine rollout. Every resources of the government that can be reasonable to turn into this activity should be. Every dollar that can reasonably be spent on this activity should be. I assume you will arrive with this in place, but if not, get in place and fast. I would block off 1 or 2 hours every single day for the Premier to give this per- personal attention. Nothing else the government is doing or will be doing is more important than this. So, so do what Ralph Klein and John Christian and so many other governments did in the 1990s when reducing deficits under promise and over deliver, which is the case means vaccination forecasts that are not aside, like deficit forecast in 1999, Albertans should hear the Premier talking about almost nothing other than vaccination. Any other issues the government needs to communicate should be uh, to the ministers or put off to some future date. When there are positive developments, the Premier should tell them. When there are setbacks, the Premier should acknowledge them and explain how the government will overcome them. The Premier is currently overexposed and has taken a solid public hit, giving the public a break from hearing from him on every issue all the time and have him focus exclusively on vaccines for at least the next 60 or perhaps 90 days. In addition, every dollar that the government is currently using to communicate anything else unless absolutely essential. Should we be convincing Albertans to get vaccinated and telling them how, where, and when what will happen? Those COVID ads were brilliant and bought a lot of goodwill. Triple, quadruple the creative ad spend on new vaccine ads flooded traditional and social media. Vaccination are your golden ticket. They are the province ticket out of the pandemic wilderness and your ticket out of political wilderness. You are the top political advisor to the Premier of Alberta and the leader of the UCP party, so on to some politics. Albertans look look to be entering a phase where two political parties, Kenny with a united right and Notley with a united left contest for power. This is the case in other three western provinces, and into arriving here. The UCP dominates rural Alberta and the NDP dominates Edmonton. That leaves Calgary as the battleground. Getting your collation right, regional and demonstrable, will require serious work by the excellence I know you have access to. My sense is that angry rural populists with short fuses and long memories are growing as uneasy in your coalition and suburbs moms with long fuses and economic uh, anxiously. Things that keep the former in the net. Ottawa bashing, fight, and silly referendums are increasing at odds with what is needed to keep the latter in the tent. A solid economic plan, open schools, and accessible childcare. You may need to make some tough choices here. Do the hard work necessary so you can make them. This will resist by a roll caucus. Who wins their seats with commanding margins, and those who want to belief the winning ways of the old Wild Rose Party. Note to self not winning ways, but winning all those rural seats with a big margin will losing Calgary means turning over government to the NDP, something no Wild Rose wants the opposition. If I'm right about Albertans becoming a competitive two-party state, then your government needs to starve the NDP's attention. Don't spend time criticizing them. There's too much of that going on, whether in the legislature or outside of it. Talk about what the government is doing, not what the NDP has done, might do. Ban the name, not Lee Phillips and Hoffman from all public communications. As the brilliant Canadian journal Paul Wells has noted, political parties get the role they campaign for. Talking too much about your political opponents makes it sound like you are um, additionally for the role of opposition, not the role of a government. Or to put it more starkly, if your popularity is waning, the last thing you should do is regularly remind the public whose the alternative is. Someday, hopefully soon, Alberta will get beyond this pandemic. When that day comes, the government will need an agenda to take the province forward. Albertans will want to know what you stand for, not what you against for. They will want to know what you will do, not what you will undo. They will want action, not reaction. I suspect you've got 3 months top to develop that agenda and make of the groundwork has been done by your government in the past couple of years. Now you just need to put it together and tie a big bow around it. And remember, no matter how it ends, this will be the most exciting and exhausting job you will ever have. So that's what the article I read of Jason Kenney, and that's one of the journalists that they saying like don't just focus on opposition, focus on other things that really matters to Albertans, right? You don't go just because Jason Kenney now is pointing at the NDP all the time and criticize them what they do in the past, and he doesn't have no plan and he didn't accomplish anything. And at the end of the day, the NDP is the one that did much of the plan and they did much of the work and they did something, and we can see that. But what did this guy accomplish in the 4 years? He didn't accomplish nothing. He just wasted time. He killed time. 2 years, nothing was accomplished by this government. We saw this government, nothing was accomplished. Nothing was working for him, and he damaged his future at the end of the day because he should have thought about doing something better for his future rather than just wasting his time and not doing anything that really matters. So that's what Jason Kenney's government pretty much did, and allowing 5 ministers to go travel in the time of pandemic. I see that's really crazy. He's supposed to think smart about it, not think stupid about that. And he did not think the right thing when he did that. He's supposed to know what I need to do right and what I need to do wrong, and that's supposed to be his plan. But obviously, we have a government that doesn't really care about the people and doesn't care about their future or anything. So we're going to be moving on now, talking about other stuff. Um, I'm going to be talking about Minister Taro Chandro yesterday, what he said. So, so that's what Mr. Tyler Chandro said. Albertans have every right to feel angry and betrayed by the government officials who floated restrictions and travel out of the country over the holiday season, two cabinet ministers say. The me collapse on behalf of the United Conservative Party government came from one minister who has been at the center of the province's 10 months battle to slow the spread of COVID-19, which has now killed 1,168 people, and from another who had held his profile for less than an hour. I've been on the phone a great deal in the last several days, and I'm hearing from Albertans who are angry, said Rick Murver, who took over a municipal Affairs Minister about 30 minutes before Tuesday's news conference, replacing Tracy Allard, who resigned after it emerged she had traveled to Hawaii for a Christmas holiday. Something they're yelling, sometimes they're using hard language. And I guess the message that I would say to Albertans is you have every right to expect good behavior and a high standard of conduct from your government. And Albertans get to judge whatever your government has those standards. And from what I've heard, Albertans have said very clearly that we have not met those high standards. What I have to say is our government agrees. So if you're telling us increasing is enough, my message is thank you. There is no doubt in our mind we did not get it right. All I can say is this: I can say that we are sorry, Sandro said, but I'm not asking for their forgiveness. I'm trying to make that very clear. I don't think we can ask for forgiveness at this time. What I'm asking for Albertans is patience. There were over a million Albertans who voted for us because we campaigned on hard work and humility, and some folks from our team forgot about that last part. It's going to take us time to be able to earn back that trust, to earn back that credibility, and to show people that humility is still important for our team, our caucus, our party, and this government. The apologies came as the province announced that a second healthcare worker, a woman in her 50s from the Edmonton zone, had died from COVID-19 just a day after the public learned that a healthcare aide from Calgary had died from a respiratory illness. Really sad. Tuesday's news conference came one day after Premier Jason Kenney accepted the resignation of Allard as Minister of Municipal Affairs and of his Chief of Staff, James Huckabee. Kenny also demoted five other MLA who traveled internationally over the holidays. Doctor Dina Hainfield, the province's chief medical health officer, also weighed in on the travel. I would echo what the minister said with respect to understanding why Albertans are so angry about this. She said, as you know, I often, when I've stood up here, have asked Albertans to conversate with each other when we all make mistakes and when we do things that we shouldn't do. And so today, like every other day, I'm going to say I can absolutely understand that anger. I also know that all of us, all Albertans, are really sick and tired of COVID, and sometimes that leads to lasper in judgment. At the news conference, Chandra defended the province vaccine distribution system, which some critics say has been too slow. He said 26,269 people had been vaccinated as of Monday. They're on track to do another 3,000 today, Chandra said. That means by the end of today, we should be at about 29,000, the initial goal that we set in mid December. It was an aggressive goal, and we're getting there only a few days later than we had hoped to spit up need to plan around delivery times and amount that are constantly shifting. We're getting the vaccine out as soon as we get them in. The minister noted that the next shipment of vaccine was on the way on Tuesday and said the province is working as fast as it can. We're on a bad course in December, but we change it, Chandro said. The province is finding ways for a immunizing program to be more efficient and bring the vaccine to where people need them. Chandro said, Alberta Health Services has launched an online appointment booking tool for healthcare workers, he said. AHS is doing everything it can to immunize as many people as possible, including providing immunization in the evening, on weekends, and on holidays, he said. They are working across every zone to give the shots at more locations. There are currently 45 sites across the province, and more will be added as more vaccine become available to Alberta. The province expected another 13,000 doses of vaccine to arrive this week. Alberta reported 26 more deaths on Tuesday and 843 new cases, with a total of 13,411 active cases in the province. Across the province, 919 patients are being treated in the hospital for illness, including 140 in ICU beds, said Dr. Dina Hinshaw, the province chief medical health officer. So that's what happened. That's what Andrew said. But again, apologies not doesn't matter. People need action, and this government 2 years now, I didn't see any action from this government at all, and they are just joking around with this. We'll move on now to other news. Um, so three COVID-19 tests required for travelers using Calgary airports. So the combination of new federal travel rules and Calgary airport testing program means people taking advantage of that pilot project will now need three COVID-19 tests to arrive in Canada and exit quarantine earlier. Under the new federal rules, as of Thursday, anyone older than 5 entering Canada will be required to show proof of a negative test taken with 72 hours before the flight before being allowed to board the plane. This new rule operates independently but will have for air travelers participating in pilot programming that allows eligible international travels to take a COVID-19 test at one of the two borders crossing in Alberta, the Calgary International Airport and the Couchland border crossing. If travelers who for the pilot project test negative, they can leave quarantine as long as they remain in Alberta for the first 14 days and get a follow-up test a week later. The pilot project is a partnership between Alberta and the federal government. The Prime Minister's office confirmed that the federal rules won't alert or cancel the pilot program, but anyone wishing to take advantage or it will now require three COVID-19 tests to comply with the mandatory federal rules and voluntary airports projects, one before, one at the airport, and one a week later. If a traveler to skip the pilot program, they are required to take only the one mandatory test before arrival in Canada, but most complete the full 14-day quarantine legal required. New arrivals from the UK and the South Africa are now permitted to use the airport testing due to the COVID-19 conditions in those countries. Alberta has a good success with the border pilot so far. The federal rules about pre-departure testing do not replace the need to quarantine on arrival or undergo testing if an individual wishes to participate in the border pilot program. Participants are still required to undergo testing upon landing the receive as a negative test and then another one during day 6 to 7. Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu says Calgary borders testing programs at the airport and the Couts land crossing are generated really helpful evidence to shape testing and quarantine protocols in Canada. As of mid-December, the province said more than 18,000 travelers had used the airport testing with at 1.48% positive rate on the first test. Federal Public Health Safety Minister Bill Blair says there will be an increased presence of border officers at Canada's four major international airports, including Calgary, to help community quarantine requirements and consult with travelers on the isolation plans. He said colleagues Foreign Affairs Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne acknowledged the new federal testing requirements for travel will be in involvement. The decision to implement the pre-boarding negative testing measures was not made lightly, he said. We strongly recommend to avoid all non-essential travel outside of Canada. So these are traveling that's going to be affecting Canada, and that's one of the most thing that one of the Canada thing that's going to happen. I'm going to be going to go back to Edmonton news and cover this news. So traumatic attack on two Black Muslim women promote family call for political action. The family of two black Muslim women who were assaulted in a hate-motivated attack last month spoke publicly for the first time Wednesday and called for political leaders to take stronger action. White supremacist groups. The women, a mother and a daughter, were assaulted outside the Southgate Center earlier last month. Police say the first of the three reported hate-motivated incidents in the span of 8 days. At a virtual news conference Wednesday, a family member said the attack has left them traumatized. The strongest women I know were involved. For being black Muslim women, the family member said, speaking for the fear of retribution. They shattered the illusion of our safety. They made us feel like strangers in the only place we have ever known. The woman said her mother and sister went to Southgate Mall on December 8th to pick up supplies before a slate of new COVID-19 public health orders came into effect in Alberta. The two women were sitting in a car in the parking lot when a man started to yell racial uh, racism. Police say witness told police that man punched the passenger side window, shattered the glass. The passenger ran from the vehicle, but the man pursued her, pushing her to the ground and assaulting her, police said. The other woman tried to help but was shoved to the ground before several bystanders intervened and stopped the attack. The attackers ripped off her mother's uh, uh, family member said, while he called the women the N-word and told them to go back to your country. My sister told me her attacker had so much hatred in her eyes. The family member said that not only did he wanted to kill them, but his physical aggression made her believe that he was going to kill them both. Police charged Richard Bradley Stevens, 41, with 2 counts of assault and 1 count of mischief. The family is calling on the police to lay out charges against a second man they say took a part in the attack. It was determined that there is no evidence to support laying charges against a second individual in the disputing incident, police spokesperson Cherry said in a statement. She said investigators reviewed available footage and interviewed witnesses, but asked anyone with a previously unreported information to contact police. None of the allegations have been proven in court. The two women have since struggled to negative the complex of victim service and support in Alberta, the family member said, meeting person after person who was equipped to deal with the hate crimes has been disheartening, she said. We hope the city law enforcement will do everything they can to bring both men to justice. The family member was joined on a video call by several Black and Muslim community organizations, including the National Council of Canadian Muslim and the Alberta Muslim Public Health Affairs Council. It is time that we go beyond. We cannot allow this kind of white supremacist violence to continue in Canada. The group is also calling for Alberta Premier Jason Kenney to join the NDP opposition leader Rachel Notley and the mayors of Edmonton and Calgary to establish a joint provincial municipal plan to stop street harassment and racist violence in Alberta. Last year, Edmonton police reported 64 hate-motivated crimes. Over the past 4 years, the number of hate-motivated crimes have been between a high of 68 in 2018 to a low of 56 in 2019, according to data provided by police. Police reported 3 hate-motivated attacks in the span of 8 days last month, beginning with the assault in the Southgate Center parking lot. A week later, police say a 23-year-old Black Muslim woman was assaulted at a nearby Southgate LRT station. The day after that, a Black man was attacked while walking near his home in Parked Isle. Joseph Glad, 38, was charged with assault causing bodily harm following the Park Adal attack. Rennie Lador, 32, was charged with assault with a weapon after the attack at the LRT station. This is this is Canada, and the fact of white supremacist violence, or the group like the three percentage exist, mobilize, and operate unchecked by law enforcement, is one of the shatter our national mythology of being a multicultural uh, paradise, said Omar. How many times do members of the Canadian Black community, Canadian Jewish and Sikhs, or members of Indigenous communities have to endure such incident before we take a stand? So this is really sad to see this kind of thing, that we have people that are racist and just attack people in the time, especially in the time of pandemic, and so many Southgate or whatever people are going out in there, and they're just attacking people left and center, and it's just normal for them to go and attack them and to go and damage them, and we don't know where to go. But now I'm gonna be moving on to um, I don't know if there's any more news thing I should talk about today. Yeah, there's another politician that travels today. I'm gonna read that one, and then I'm gonna be going, and then we will see what we will talk about. Um, Mexico on personal travel. White and Platt are among multiple Canadian politicians who left the country over December in the face of government advisories against travel abroad because of COVID-19 pandemic. Applaud that the leader of the opposition in the Senate, Don Platt, traveled to a resort in Mexico when he breathed the prime minister for going to a close-by a cottage this summer. She said his party leader should remove his of his leadership role, exactly as it was done with members of parliament that don't follow the health recommendations. So this is again another person that decided to travel and decided to go abroad and travel. Let me see if there's any Edmonton news left. We don't have really much news of today. And we have more news. All workers on COVID-19 ward need vaccine now. Alberta doctor tells health minister to in open letter. More than 200 doctors have signed an open letter calling on the province to prioritize the vaccination of all healthcare workers caring for patients in Alberta dedicated COVID-19 wards. In the letter sent Wednesday to Health Minister Tyler Shandro, 219 physicians from across the province say Alberta's vaccination schedule has passed over critical workers on the front lines of Alberta battle against the virus. The physicians say all personnel employed in the specialized unit, including family physicians, medical intensives, nurse clerk, aides, physical therapist, and cleaning staff, contended with the same risk and should be next in line for inoculation, the letter states. The situation is urgent, the doctors say. Ward staff are continuously exposed to the virus, and despite the use of PPE, some of the already contracted COVID-19 from their patients. These are the unsung heroes of our battle against this virus, the letter said. It is not only dumbfounding, but it's the fact demoralizing. These colleagues have not been recognizing for the valuable contribution they make. Chandro did not immediately respond to the request for comment, but an Alberta health spokesperson said Wednesday the current plan directs limited supplies of vaccine to where they are needed, most ensuring the protection of long-term care residents and the medical staff who serve them. Healthcare workers in COVID-19 units are eligible for immunizing during the phase of 1 billion of Albertans vaccine schedule slated to begin next month. During the same phase, immunization will be offered to workers in medical and surgical units or operating rooms to seniors 75 and older and people 65 and older living on First Nation reserves in Métis settlements. The government has passed over a large group of healthcare workers, professionals who are still continuously dealing with known COVID-19 patients and not simply the possibility of the same, reads the letter. Dedicated COVID-19 wards have been operating in Alberta in the province, providing care for patients diverting from intensive care units who rely on specialized treatments such as ventilations and must be carefully quarantined. The units are most often staffed by medical surgical nurses and internal medical medicine and family medicine physicians, many of whom have been redeployed from other areas to provide adequate staffing for patients battling the disease. We would ask that all professionals who are working in COVID-19 units to be given a priority for COVID-19 vaccination, much like our colleagues in ICU and emergency departments, the letter says. Our primary request is the nursing staff, unit clerks, and cleaning staff who work on the COVID-19 wards be given urgent prioritization and for vaccination. The ability to staff Albertans' COVID-19 ward remains. The letter says it says staff are often sent home due to illnesses or possible exposures to the virus. Vaccinating all unit personnel immediately would ensure staff are protected and patients' care is maintained, the doctor says. The province received the first shipment of vaccine in mid-December. Healthcare workers in intensive care units, respiratory therapists, and staff in long-term care and designated supportive living faculties were first in line to receive it. This month, the vaccine is also being administered to residents of long-term care and designated supportive living faculties, home care workers, and healthcare workers in intensive care units and emergency departments. Alberta Health spokesperson Tom McMullen said the current roll-out plan is the best strategy given the limited supply of vaccine. The plan ensures Alberta's most at risk of severe outcomes are protected first, he said Wednesday. We absolutely recognize the important role that these healthcare workers play and thank them for the work they do every day, McClellan said in an email statement. Right now, we're reviewing limited doses of the vaccine. We're starting to phase one with those who are vulnerable and healthcare workers who serve them. We also immunizing healthcare workers that care directly for these individuals or who work in areas where COVID-19 is most critically impacting our ability to deliver care. The province will start immunizing all other healthcare workers in medical, surgical, and COVID-19 units or operating rooms starting in February, providing enough vaccine arrives, he said. To start immunizing all these workers immediately, we would be forced to immediately stop immunizing residents and staff in long-term care and designated supportive living. As we get more vaccine, we will expand this approach and move to phase 1 billion as quickly as possible. The letter is the latest criticism of Alberta's vaccination program, which some critics have said has been too slow. The province vaccinated on average 1,248 people per day during the first 21 days of the campaign and failed to meet its goals to vaccinate 29,000 people by mid-December. The province would need to vaccinate more than 12,000 people per day to vaccinate every Albertan by the end of 2021. At a news conference Tuesday, Shandro defended the province's vaccine distribution system, noting that the next shipment of vaccine was on the way later that afternoon. The province is finding ways to make immunization program more efficient and get the vaccine to people who need it, he said. It was an aggressive goal, and we're getting there only a few days later than we had hoped in spite of need to plan around delivery times and the amounts that are continuously and constantly shifting, Chandru said. He said AHS is doing everything it can to immunize as many people as possible, including providing immunization in the evening, on weekends, and on holidays. The province expected another 13,000 doses of vaccine to arrive this week. We are on a path We are in a bad course. We are in a bad course, and it's just sorry, people. Um, Something flying over me. That's why I am. That's why so that's what this whole message is about the COVID-19, and it's very important that people really follow the health rules as much as we can, and not joke around with the health rules and the health plan of the COVID-19 as much as we can. So that's all we have for this. Now we're gonna be moving on talking about uh, the protesters that are happening. So our prime minister responded now finally to the protesters that are protesting in the protesters that are protesting now in Washington. So I'm going to be going to Washington now, forwarding to Washington and talking about what's happening. So Trudeau says he is concerned by Washington D.C. violence hopes for calm. Trump post video restating fraud claims, telling supporters to go home. So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said today he's concerned by the violent actions of Trump supporters storming the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., adding he hopes the situation calms down soon. Obviously, we're concerned and we're following the situation minute by minute as it unfolds, Trudeau said in a radio interview with the News 11:30 in Vancouver today. I think American democratic institutions are strong and hopefully everything will return to normal shortly. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to make sure that Canadians are well served in our relationship with the United States, regardless of how things unfold. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole also spoke out against the violence, commending the action of pro-Trump protesters as an assault on democracy. The storming of Capitol building is an astonishing assault on freedom and democracy. I am deeply saddened to see Cho's grip our greatest ally today, he said in a social media post. The protest, staged by supporters of outgoing President Donald Trump, started off peacefully but soon saw violence clash with the police. Trump urged his supporters to come to Washington to protest Congress' formal approval of the president-elect Joe Biden win in general election, a process that was underway when the protesters began. Several Republican lawmakers have backed Trump calls despite the absence of any evidence of fraud or wrongdoing in the election. Both the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House Representatives erupted suspend proceeding as dozens of people breached security at the Capitol. Lawmakers inside the House chamber were told to put on gas masks to tear as gas was fired in rotunda. Image emerged of security officials holding some protesters at gunpoint, doors to the House chamber and guarding in from inside the pistol drawn. Trump asked protesters to leave, repeats fraud claims. After repeated calls from Trump to make a public statement to tell his supporters to leave the Capitol, Trump posted a video statement to his Twitter account repeating his claims that the election had been stolen and asking his supporters to go home. So that's what's happening, and people are protesting now outside of the White House because of the stupid president that doesn't want to leave and he doesn't want to accept the resignation of his loss. And Trudeau saw it very devastating to see that, and during the Capitol Hill and during to see it there, and that's just um, really crazy when you see people are really protesting out there, and it's really crazy to see it, and it's not really a joking matter, but it's really sad that you can see that how America, how divided it is, and until now, from the time the election started, from the U.S. election started until now, we can see how bad America, how divided it became in every way, and it's just how sad you see it, and it is a little bit disappointing, but that's how America became so far now. It became a saddened place that we all know, right? Um, so that's what it is, right? And Biden already talked today, so um, we're gonna be moving on because this is the big story now that's being covered across the whole Canada. So protester backing the President Donald Trump breached the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday in violent clash with the police. At least one explosive device was found nearby, but law enforcement officials said it was no longer a threat. Trump has urged his supporters to come to Washington to protest Congress' formal approval of President-elect Joe Biden with a general election. Several Republican lawmakers have backed his call despite there being no evidence of fraud or wrongdoing in the election. Protesters were inside the Senate chamber. One got up and said that and yelled, "Trump won that election." Several dozen were roaming through the hall yelling, "Where are they?" Some were also in the visitors' galleries. Both chambers erupted when into recent. The District of Columbia Mayor Browser issued a curfew for 6 p.m., and the Pentagon says about 1,100 DC National Guard members are being mobilized to help support lawmakers. A spokesperson told the Association Press on Wednesday that officers from the Federal Protective Service and U.S. Secret Service agents are being sent to the scene. He says they are requested to assist by the U.S. Capitol Police. The protesters tore down the metal barriers at the bottom of the Capitol steps and were met by officers. Some tried to push past the officers who held shields, and officers could be seen firing pepper sprays into the crowd to keep them back. Some in the crowd were shouting "traitors" as officers tried to keep them back. Suspicious packages were also repeated in the area. Capitol Police said, uh, "Will not let them silence your voice," Trump told the supporters. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau expressed concerns about the violence. "Obviously, we're concerned and we're following the situation minute by minute," Trudeau told the Vancouver radio station News 1130. "I think the American democratic institutions are strong and hopefully everything will return to normal shortly." So this is what's happening in America, and it's still continuing with fraud and always it's crazy today because they had election yesterday in Georgia, and Republicans are really upset because of it. And let them get upset. Like this guy ruined the whole America in 4 years and didn't keep nothing. That's the way it is. The Ford says Ontario will consider tough lockdown measures as 3,266 new COVID-19 cases reported. Premier Ford says the province will decide in the coming days whether or not more strict lockdown measures, including possible keeping schools closed, are needed to curb the surge of COVID-19 cases in Ontario. Ford held his first news conference in more than 2 weeks Wednesday, aimed concerns about the pace of Ontario ongoing COVID-19 vaccine rollout and unresolved questions around his former finance minister Caribbean over the holiday. The news conference came as Ontario reported another 3,266 COVID-19 cases and 37 more deaths linked to the illness, including that a 57-year-old uh, a registered nurse who worked at the Extradori long-term care home in Mississauga. In a statement, Union said she represented everything good about what it means to serve your community. Hospitalization figures continue to reach new pandemic high in Ontario. There are now 1,463 people with confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the province hospital. Of those, 361 are being treated in intensive care and 246 required. In weeks since Ford last took questions, there has been more than 40,000 new COVID-19 cases in the province, while while the numbers of people hospitalized has risen sharply and 579 more people have died. Two hospitals, one in London and another in Windsor, said the week they are using mobilized freezers travelers to temporarily store bodies after their mortgage reached capacity from in, influx of patients who died within the COVID-19. Sorry, people, just I have things, I don't know what is it. Hopefully it will go away. Um, so Force asked Wednesday if the province is doing enough to fight the virus and if tighter measures should be enacted, much like what is being reported considerably for Quebec. The Quebec government is set to unveil detail Wednesday of more strict lockdown measures it will put in place. We're doing everything we can. We're throwing everything at it, Ford said. The premier said he's going to speak to Quebec Premier Francois Legault this evening. We'll be making the decision over the next few days, Ford says. Back to schools question. The premier was also asked if children not returning to school in Ontario is a possibility. Ford said he would be talking to the province chief medical officer of health about that issue. We'll take that advice and be announcing that in the next days or so, Ford says. Meanwhile, the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario released a statement Wednesday calling on the province not to send kids back while the province is under a lockdown. It makes no sense for the government to send students, teachers, and education workers back to school while the province is locked for another 2 to 3 weeks. President Sam, despite repeated calls for adequate safety measures, the government has refused to implement them in a misguided effort to save money, jeopardize the health and safety of students, educators, and their families. Ford also faced questions about his government plan outlined in technical briefing this week. As at 8 p.m. Monday, 60,380 people in Ontario have received the initial dose of vaccine for the novel coronavirus, including 10,350 who received a shot yesterday. The figure includes around 26,000 healthcare workers in long-term care and retirement home, about 20,700 another healthcare professionals, and not quite 1,000 residents of long-term care. Ontario is currently lagging behind another province on per capita basis in getting I hope everybody have a great day and stay safe. And I will see you tomorrow.